Hello, hello, hello. Today we're looking at tax and the government budget. Let's get into it. So we've got lots of things to look at here. Why do they take taxation from you? What type of taxes are they able to do? And what's the impact on us and the rest of society? Taxation. These countries have a really high tax to GDP. What does that really mean? What does it mean for France? What even is GDP? Do you know? So GDP is gross domestic product. Basically shows the total earnings of everybody. How much of that is getting taxed? Well, 46.2%. That's an enormous amount. In fact, a lot of these countries are taxing an enormous amount. So the question is, what does it mean? It means that France either have a lot of waste or they have absolutely excellent social services. Let's go a bit deeper then. How do we finance a government? Out of all the taxes you can think of, which are the biggest taxes that the African government collects? Think about you, your work, think about companies, think about imports and exports. Have a think about what are your top three. Let me show you. Wow. Income tax from employment is the biggest that's collected. Next, they have corporation tax and businesses, VAT when you buy goods and services. Those are the big three. There are lots of ways they collect tax, right? Look at that inheritance tax. They even collect tax when you die. So sad. So what are these taxes used for then? Here's a little video that I saw that I quite enjoyed that showed where these taxes go.
Nearly half goes to Social Security and Medicare. These taxes, known as payroll taxes, are spent on health insurance and income for the disabled and people in retirement, like Tabitha's grandparents. Gram and Papa paid their FICA taxes when they were Tabitha's age, and now they're enjoying the benefits, just like Tabitha will someday.
That leaves $3,978 of Tabitha's federal income tax left to be spent. The largest chunk of your federal income tax goes to medical programs that help low-income families, like Medicaid and CHIP. That means that, including FICA, almost 60% of Tabitha's federal taxes are basically going towards insurance programs.
$930 of Tabitha's salary supports men and women enlisted in the armed forces. Plus, it pays for fighter jets, submarines, and Pentagon staff.
Tabitha may not realize it, but she's on the hook for America's loans. $525 of her income tax goes to pay back the debt the government borrowed.
Isn't that crazy? So that national debt that the government owe, it actually comes out of your paycheck if you're in America or in other countries.
$298 goes to unemployment and labor programs, $238 to veterans benefits like VA hospital and veteran job training programs, $179 goes to food and agriculture, and $167 of Tabitha's salary helps keep the government running, funding agencies like the FBI, Border Patrol, federal prisons, and even the salaries of her senators.
Tabitha spends $127 on transportation agencies like the FAA and TSA, and $111 on education, including Pell Grants and the National Endowment for the Arts. She gives $83 a year to housing and community programs, $63 a year to energy and the environment, $51 a year for international affairs like the State Department and Peace Corps, and $39 a year to fund America's science.
So you can see where this is going. Your tax money, you don't have a choice where it goes. It just goes to all these different programs and you must accept it. All right, moving forward. So here's a basic list of all the things we saw in that video. Education, infrastructure, healthcare, defense, social services. This is where your money to the government goes, okay? So we need to understand next what makes a tax system fair. And to do that, we look at this old gentleman, Adam Smith. The Wealth of Nations. I don't know if you've read his famous book, but it's definitely worth a look. So he calls these aspects the canons of taxation, about what makes a tax fair. So let's have a quick look. We've got equality, certainty, convenience, and economy. So equality. Tax should be case by case. The more you earn, the more you pay. Certainty. I bet Americans would love this. You need to know exactly how much you should pay and when. Make it clear. Convenience. It should be easy to pay. And economy. Imagine if it cost you more to collect the tax than the tax actually was. What a waste of time. So it can't be expensive to collect. So those are the four canons of a good system. Try to remember them. Now, this is the meat and potatoes. Does a government choose progressive, regressive, or proportional tax systems? So let's start with the progressive tax. This is a really important one, okay? And 90% of countries in the world use this. A tax where the rate increases as income increases. So higher earners pay a larger percentage, okay? Regressive is the opposite, where as your money that you earn increases, you pay a lower percentage. You still end up paying more the more money you earn in total numbers, but it's considered a more fairer tax in some ways because the total amount paid is similar. And finally, proportional, where you pay the same percentage of your salary regardless of your salary. Okay, so now we're going to crunch a few numbers to help you understand it, okay? So we're going to look at a low income earner, a middle income earner, and a high income earner. We've got a cleaner, a teacher, and an IT professional. So with proportional tax, it's the easy one, 15% for every person, okay? So can you calculate 15%, 15%, and 15% and work out how much each person pays? Pause the video. Did you get this? 3,515K. So we can see that the person that earns more ends up actually paying more, 5 times more than this guy, but it's proportional. Next, progressive. This is a little bit different, okay? So when it comes to progressive, there are very specific rules, okay? 10% for income up to 30K, 20% from 30,000 to 70,000, and 30% for 70,000 up. So using these 3 individual rules, can you calculate it for these 3 different people? Let me give you a clue. The low income person is on 20K, right? That's inside this bracket, so they're only going to be taxed 10%. But the middle income person, 30,000 of their money is going to be charged at 10%, and 20,000 is going to be charged at 20%. I hope that helps. Pause the video, please. Right, so let's have a look at this concept then. Did you get this? So we know this is in the lower tax bracket here. For the 50,000 person, 30,000 is in the lowest tax bracket. That stays the same for everyone. 10% on their first 30K, and then 20% on the next 20K, leading to a total of 3,000 plus 4,000, totaling 7,000. Now for the 100,000 guy. The 100,000 IT programmer, some of their money is above 70K, right? So they're going to have to pay 30% on anything over 70K. So that's going to be 30,000 times 30%. And they're completely in this range. So it's around 40,000 times 20 plus 10% of 30. So that's the harder equation. And when we put all this together, they have to pay a whopping total of 20,000. So this progressive tax is most common in society, and this is how it really works. Now let's look at the opposite then, regressive tax. So we're going to change the rules here. Meaning, your first 30K, you pay 15%, the higher amount. After 30K earnings, you only pay 10%. And after 70K, you only pay 5%. Can you pause it now and do the same methodology to calculate this? Did you get these numbers? It's all the same structure. We can see still though, based on this, the person that earns the most money actually still pays more tax, but the numbers are much closer together with regressive tax than they are with progressive. You see there's a 7,000 difference here between the highest and lowest earner, and with progressive there is an 18,000 difference between the highest and lowest earner. And here it is in a nice formulated table. So overall, which one gives us the most money in this situation? It's the progressive tax. So why do you think governments like it so much? It also kind of helps the rich and poor gap in society, which everyone talks about. Now, tax types. We branch them into 2 types in society, direct and indirect. Direct tax comes straight out of your salary or straight out of a company's profit. So whatever profit you have, the accountant runs the numbers and pays the tax to the government. In the same way, the accountant runs the numbers for your salary and pays that tax directly to the government. You don't see it, hear it, taste it, smell it. It's gone. So here are some examples. When you get paid in England, you automatically give money to the national insurance, to the hospital services. Property tax. You might have to pay tax based on the value of your property. Motor vehicles tax. Just for owning the car, you got to pay tax on it for it existing on the roads. Corporation tax, that's just on profits. Income tax and payroll, very similar, just your salary. Now, the next kind of tax is indirect tax. This is an intermediary, that's why it's indirect. Usually it's VAT. It's passed on to the consumer. So an example would be when you buy a drink in a bar, there's lots of tax on that. Landfill tax, if you wanna pollute the environment, you better pay for it. VAT, the most common one. I go to a store, I buy a product, I've got to pay 17.5% of the value of that product to the store, and then the store send that taxation money to the government. So these are examples of indirect taxes. All right, that pretty much covers everything we need to know about taxes at the GCSE level. Okay, so a quick exam question then. Explain 2 ways a government could redistribute income. taking from the rich and giving to the poor. And remember, for an explain question, it's point, explain, 4 marks. That's how you get them. Let's go. I hope you paused the video and had a go at it. Right, so firstly then, what kind of tax system would be best? Progressive, regressive, or proportional? And the one that made the government the most money was progressive. So, a progressive tax system where, as income increases, a higher percentage of tax is taken. There's 2 marks right there. You said the word progressive income, you said the word progressive tax, and you explained it. And the second part is using that money you've just received to distribute to the poor. How do they distribute to the poor? Social security. What is social security, remember? We've got pensions, free healthcare, benefits when you're jobless, benefits for children, okay? So here's the actual mark scheme. See all the different kinds of benefits you can put there? Just making sure that you specify that it takes people out of poverty or raises incomes based on these benefits. So you state the benefit and then you state what it does. It raises incomes, okay? And then you state the progressive income tax system and you state what it does. That's your 4 marks. There are other ways to get some marks. I'd argue that it doesn't always have to be a progressive income tax system. So for redistribution, the government has to receive the money in some way and then give it back. Now, if you made a very simple answer of taxing the rich and giving to the poor, you'd still get a mark. So it's very clear you need to have an identification of the word and an explanation, an identification of the word and explanation. I hope that helps when you get to your exams. Have a great day and I'll see you all again.